Hey guys, I'm ZSH Plays. Welcome back to the Moonlight World. Today we're going to be building a habitat for everyone's favourite little animal, the Red Panda. So this is going to be the start of a little Asian area in our Moonlight World zoo. And I want it to be really immersive, so I'm going to be running a path through this little sort of jungle that I've made here, and then clearing the path out and getting the habitat right in this little spot here. I want you to be able to see the raccoons and the aviary for the bats in the background when you're looking at this build, just sort of subtly away in the distance with some lights, because obviously it's a nighttime zoo, so lights are really important. And we're again going to be drawing inspiration from the Singapore Night Safari. I saw a really cute habitat for pangolins there, and I'm going to replicate that to a certain extent for the red pandas. And like I said before, we're going to try and have something unique in each build. So in this build, I'm going to try and build a little tree house for the pandas that's going to be about as small as I can get it. It's not going to be usable. Obviously, this is Planet Zoo. You can either have big and usable or small and not usable. So I'm going to go with small and not usable today. We're going to keep them in with a moat. Although, having started this habitat, I discovered that they can swim, thanks to a post from Just Goron. So we're going to have to add some little barriers as well on the sort of guest side of the moat, so just to make sure that they can't get out. And I'm going to dress this up with some rocks to get this looking nice and smooth. And this is how the moat was in the habitat that I was getting my inspiration from as well. So spent quite a lot of time on this little bit here, just making sure that the edges of the little river looked sort of natural in a man-made way, if that makes sense, and just making sure it was attractive. So we'll copy these rocks over to the other side and then make any necessary adjustments so they line up with the river. I wanted this to be sort of curved, so it's not just a sort of a straight moat that looks really unattractive. I want it to look nice in a designed to be nice, even if it is man-made kind of way. We'll get the terrain nice and flat at this bit and then make it slightly rough behind that for interest. And yeah, that's the sort of the holding part of the habitat done. We'll get into the main part of the habitat now. This video is going to jump a lot between day and night. Apologies for that, but I can't build the whole thing at night because I can't see what I'm doing. But I need to know what it's going to look like at night, because that's how it's going to be viewed. So like this concrete wall, for instance, blends nicely into the background at night once I've got all the foliage in front of it. In the day, it's really noticeable. So I've gone with a sort of medium brown. It's nice and dark at night time. And we'll make sure that the habitat's pretty small to get the viewing opportunities as good as possible, with the red pandas being pretty small little guys. And I'm using individual concrete wall sections to build this rather than the concrete barriers, just to get away from the big sort of posts that are there by default when you use the in-game barriers. It takes a lot longer doing it this way. You've also got more control over the exact colour. So I really want this to, like I say, sort of sit away in the background so you can't really see it. And then we'll cover it up with loads of plants, starting with these. So my favourite plant in the game, the ponytail palm. We're going to sink this way down next to the river so it looks like little reeds, because I saw some reeds poking out in the reference photo that I was using. So we'll get a nice little arrangement of these, get them sunk way down, and then copy them all the way across the front of the habitat here. The idea being that you'll barely see them, they just add a bit of interest to the build. And then we'll cover up the ends of the walls with some more of the ponytail palms, but just positioning them a bit higher. And then we're going to go crazy with foliage here. I want the outside of the habitat, or the edge of the habitat rather, to be completely covered in plants, so you can barely see the wall, and it really gives you that sort of jungly feel where it sort of, you can't really tell where the habitat ends and the jungle behind it begins. So using loads of different plants here, and then I want to keep the central area pretty much empty, and that's where all the climbing and the little tree house and things like that are going to go. So just a few more tropical plants around the edge to get this really nice and filled up, and then we'll take a look at it at night time and make sure we're happy with how it's looking. Nice, okay, let's get on to the treehouse. So ignore the box to the left. That took me absolutely ages to build, to get that little hole in it in the middle, but I decided I didn't like it and it was a bit big. So that sort of hangs around in the habitat for a bit and then ends up getting deleted. So forget that, concentrate on this little one to the side. I want to make a really cute little tree house like you often see in Red Panda habitats that's going to be attached to a tree. Like I say, they won't actually be able to get in or out of it, but it's just going to look cute. Using the new Twilight Pack planks for this, which are nice and small, and then just a little arch shape to simulate the hole that they're going to get through. In the one to the left, I actually managed to get a working hole using some tiny little pieces. Obviously they still wouldn't be able to get through it, so it seemed kind of pointless. It was more of a technical achievement than anything actually useful for the build, so I decided to get rid of it. But this looks nice and cute. We'll put some decals and things like that on it. I get some even smaller planks in here so that we can make sure there's no gaps, and it looks like a nice solid little tree house that would keep them out of any inclement weather. I gotta say, I'm amazed how much I'm using these Twilight Pack pieces. I thought it might be a bit specific when it was announced, but I'm definitely using these more than I use the Conservation Pack pieces, even though I was really excited about new concrete and backstage stuff in that pack. But some of the little wood pieces and the new stone pieces are just so good that yeah, I'm using them all the time. I was going to put that little window thing in, but I decided to get rid of that in the end. But yeah, that's the tree house. We'll just attach it to this tree, and then we'll get a little climbable log so that or it looks at least like the red pandas could get in here. So just fiddling around with these climbable log pieces. I've not seen them climb these ones too much, maybe because there's not really anywhere for them to go once they get to the top of it, but I really like the way it looks. Looks like a nice natural log, and with it being a birch, it also looks a bit more like the sort of temperate / cold kind of tree that the red pandas would have in their natural environment. Like I said, we'll put some decals on it as well, give it a nice weathered look, like it's got some moss up on the roof. And then we'll move on and take care of another little bit of climbing enrichment for them. Thanks for all your comments on the previous episode, by the way, the little skunk habitat. I was a bit nervous about doing a habitat that was basically a rectangle. I think I mentioned that in the video. Not really a shape I would normally use, but I thought the decals and the contrast between the outside and the inside and the little wood planks, etc., made it worth building, and I'm glad that you guys agreed. Got some really nice comments on that one, so thank you. Feel free to leave a comment on this video, as always. Let me know what you think of it. I'm just going to recolor these rocks, get them a bit closer to the reference image I was looking at, and then we're going to hide a forage feeder into the floor here. This is always one of my favourite things to do, just subtly raise the terrain all the way around the edges of it, so it looks just like a little patch of mulch and food for the pandas rather than this big octagonal enrichment item. And then we're going to put some of Caesar Create's climbable dead trees into the habitat, which I'm going to edit a bit to suit my purposes. These are really good. I think they're made for big cats, definitely not made for red pandas, so they're going to need a lot of adjusting to make them climbable for these guys, but it's worth doing because I really like the way they look, especially at night. You can't see the sort of contrast between the brown trunk and the white branches when it's at night time. They look really realistic and a lot more interesting than just some more climbing. And there were some really cool little fake trees in the habitat that I was looking at, and we don't really have that in the game. So this is about as close as you can get. I didn't think I could do it any better than Caesar did, so I just used his and modified it quite a bit to get it to work for the pandas. We'll put a little door in, and then we will light the habitat up with the lights that we created back in the raccoons episode. Still really enjoying how these work, and then we'll carry on making adjustments to the trees to get them to work properly for the pandas, and drop a bit of this variegated ivy on top of the walls just to break up the outline so it's not ruler straight at the top. This is really effective once it's placed all the way around it. Really breaks up the outline and stops you from looking at the wall, just makes you concentrate on the habitat instead. So I actually put the pandas into the habitat just to keep adjusting and adjusting and adjusting until finally got the climbable trees to work, and then they'll happily walk back and forth along the rope, which is exactly what I want them to do. It stops them from spending all their time on the ground, which obviously you would not see red pandas do. And that's the habitat. I really hope you enjoy it. Thank you for watching as always. I'll leave you with the cinematics, and I'll see you again for some more Planet Zoo. Thanks for watching.